Are you stuck in survival mode? The wake-up call. Nobody is coming to save us, no matter what you think. We've been taught how to survive. That's something we've mastered over generations. We know how to make something out of nothing, how to stretch a dollar, how to endure pressure that would break other people. But what we haven't fully embraced is how to move beyond survival into something greater. Survival keeps you alert, but it also keeps you reactive. It keeps you stuck in a cycle where you're always responding instead of creating. And that's where the problem begins. Because if all we ever do is survive, we never build. If we never build, we never own. If we never own, we stay in a position where everything around us can shift without our control. That's not power. That's dependence dressed up as resilience. We've got to start asking ourselves real questions. Not surface level questions that sound good, but the kind that force us to look in the mirror. What are we building that will outlast us? What systems are we creating so the next generation doesn't have to fight the same battles we kept losing? Because the truth is, we don't lack talent. We don't lack creativity. We don't lack intelligence. What we lack is consistent structure. And without structure, even the greatest talent will go to waste. So now we're at a point where we have to decide, are we going to keep reacting to life, or are we going to start designing it? A lot of people hear the word discipline and immediately feel restricted. They think it means losing freedom, but the reality is the exact opposite. Discipline gives you control over your time, your energy, and your direction. Without it, you're at the mercy of your emotions, your environment, and whatever distractions come your way. We've normalized chaos so much that structure feels uncomfortable. But that discomfort is exactly where growth lives. The people who move forward are not always the most talented. They're the most consistent. They show up even when they don't feel like it. They stay focused when everything around them is trying to pull them off track. Consistency is the bridge between where you are and where you say you want to be. And most people never cross that bridge because they keep stopping every time it gets hard. We live in a time where information is everywhere. You can learn anything at any time. But having access to information doesn't mean you're growing. It just means you're aware. And awareness without action is one of the biggest traps out here. How many times have we heard powerful messages, watched motivational content, or even had deep conversations, and then went right back to the same habits the next day? That's not transformation. That's entertainment disguised as growth. At some point, we have to ask ourselves, what are we actually doing with what we know? Because knowledge without application keeps you stuck in the same place, just with better vocabulary. Pride doesn't always show up loud. Sometimes it's subtle. It shows up when we refuse to listen, when we reject correction, when we choose to protect our ego instead of improving our situation. And that's dangerous because growth requires humility. It requires the ability to say, I need to do better, without feeling like you're losing yourself in the process. Too many of us would rather be right than better. And that mindset keeps cycles repeating. Financial cycles, relationship cycles, mental cycles. We see the pattern We feel the damage, but we won't break it because our pride won't let us. Isn't that something? Whether we admit it or not, our environment plays a huge role in what we become. The people around you, the conversations you engage in, the energy you tolerate, it all adds up. If you're surrounded by people who normalize struggle, negativity, doom, and a lack of direction, eventually that becomes your standard. Not because you wanted to, but because you've been conditioned to accept it. That's why it's so important to be intentional about your circle. Not everyone around you is meant to grow with you. And that's not about thinking you're better than anyone. It's about understanding that different mindsets produce different outcomes. We've been sold a version of success that focuses heavily on appearance. Money, status, image, all things that look good on the outside. But those things don't mean much if your mind is not at peace, if your foundation is unstable, or if your relationships are broken. Real success is deeper than that. It's about ownership. It's about having control over your life. It's about building something that lasts, something that creates stability not just for you, but for those connected to you. We need to shift our focus from being seen as successful to actually being secure, grounded, and free. We can't keep looking outside for leadership while neglecting it within our own spaces. Leadership doesn't always mean a title or a platform. It starts in your home, in your daily actions, in the way you carry yourself. Every household needs structure. Every community needs guidance. And that responsibility can't always fall on someone else. We've got to be willing to step up, even when it's uncomfortable. Because if we don't lead where we are, we can't expect to change where we are not. This is the part that some people don't want to hear, but it's the most important. Nobody is coming to fix everything for us. And once we fully accept that, something powerful happens. We stop waiting. We stop blaming. We stop hoping for change and start creating it. That realization isn't negative. It's liberating because it puts the control back in our hands. It forces us to take ownership of our future instead of depending on forces we can't control. We are not lacking potential. We are not lacking ability. What we're facing is a gap between what we know and what we consistently do. That gap is where discipline comes in. That gap is where structure is built. That gap is where real transformation begins. We can no longer afford to live on autopilot. These times require awareness, intention, and action. Not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. The truth may not always feel comfortable, but it's necessary because comfort is what keeps us stuck, and truth is what moves us forward. And at the end of the day, the question is simple. Are we ready to do the work, or are we going to keep talking about what needs to be done? Think about it and look in the mirror. The change is up to you. I hope these words touched you. LanceScurv out, on to the next one. Thanks for being here. I totally appreciate you. Leave your comments. Peace.